It was Christmas Eve in a farm village, and Nnedimma, a once struggling akara seller, had a compound filled with cars as her children arrived from their various bases. Their trucks overflowing with bags of rice, cartons of tomatoes, fish, and other provisions. Nnedimma now basked in the pride of raising sons who had not only succeeded but remained grounded in humility and generosity. By the corner of the compound, where their kinsmen gathered to collect portions of meat from cows or the naka, Nnedimma's eldest son, who worked in an oil servicing company in the city of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, had slaughtered as part of his annual tradition. Odinaka had taken it upon himself to share cows for his kinsmen every Christmas, and they all anticipated this tradition every Christmas with joy in their hearts. Meanwhile, Onyebuchi, Nnedimma's second son, gave wrappers and money to the widows, and Osinachi, the youngest son, distributed bags of rice to struggling families. This routine had become a highlight for the villagers, a time when families less fortunate could partake in the joy of Christmas. Nnedimma's children never failed to uphold these traditions. Their acts of generosity showed the values Nnedimma had instilled in them to share their blessings and uplift others. But not everyone in the community was pleased with them. Among the smiles and laughter was discomfort. In the heart of a woman whose name was Njideka, bitterness festered. Njideka had once considered herself superior to Nnedimma. She sat in her crumbling home, her thoughts steeped in envy. She couldn't stand the sight of Nnedimma's transformation. The once poor akara seller now commanded respect. Her children hailed as honorable men. Memories of lending Nnedimma wrappers for meetings tormented her, a bitter contrast to Nnedimma now gifting others. Njideka's husband Okonkwo had tried to guide their children toward productive lives, encouraging them to learn trades, but she had dismissed him as unambitious. Instead, she promised to send their children to the city for trade, but never fulfilled her promise. Her sons, left unguided, turned to mischief, bringing shame to their family. Watching Nnedimma's family celebrate each Christmas deepened Njideka's bitterness, and her envy soon morphed into hatred. The festive season carried on, and Njideka hid her feelings behind a facade of gratitude. The Christmas holiday and celebration has come to an end, and everyone was ready to go back to their bases. Njideka visited Nnedimma's children with some gifts in appreciation for all they've been doing for her. She gave a keg of palm oil to Odinaka, cocoyam flakes known as achicha to Onyebuchi, and oil bean okpaka to Osinachi. Nnedimma's children, though could afford those gifts, received them warmly with gratitude and even gave her some money for giving, despite having little, unaware of the malice hidden within. As they returned to their city lives, strange occurrences began to plunge them. Odinaka noticed discrepancies in his business accounts. Shipments went missing and payments were delayed. For a man accustomed to success, the sudden chaos felt unnatural. Osinachi's heavily pregnant wife had a dream one night. In that dream, she was heard shouting, "Mama, please don't kill me." When she woke up, she told Osinachi that she saw his mother chasing her with a cutlass. Hours later, she went into labor, but the baby was stillborn. Osinachi could not comprehend the ominous dream and the subsequent tragedy. He began to suspect his mother. He confided in his brothers, planting seeds of doubt. "How do you explain the dream?" Osinachi asked his brothers. "I think Mama has suddenly become a witch," he said. "How dare you talk of Mama in such a manner? After all she has been through to raise us, don't you think evil forces may have risen against us to cause a problem in our family, Odinaka asked. And why am I not facing such calamity? Onyebuchi, outraged, asked. How can you even think that? Mama has done nothing but pray for us. These are just trials, he said as he vehemently defended their mother, attributing his continued success to divine favor and urging his brothers to pray. The following Christmas, Osinachi refused to return home. He said he does not want to see his mother, whom he had labeled a witch. Nnedinma was heartbroken. What have I done wrong? Why would Osinachi accuse me of witchcraft? Have I not been a good mother? She asked. Though she was heartbroken, her faith remained steadfast, and she sought solace in prayers with Onyebuchi, her second son, and his wife Chinenye. Their unwavering devotion shielded them from Njideka's charms, creating a spiritual barrier that protected their household. The Christmas was quieter without Osinachi, and the villagers wondered why he never came back. Njideka basked in what she perceived as her success, believing her schemes were working. However, she failed to realize the spiritual battle unfolding around her. Onyebuchi's business thrived, and his family was filled with joy. Njideka could not understand why her charms worked on the others but not him. In her desperation, she sought stronger charms that could bring Nnedinma's family to ruin. But what Njideka didn't realize was that she was up against a power far greater than hers. This Christmas season lacked its usual vibrancy in Nnedinma's compound. The absence of Osinachi and his family was palpable. Their refusal to return did not bring full joy to the household. Each time Nnedinma grew sad and began to complain, her second son, Onyebuchi, would reach for her hand to comfort her. Mama, don't blame yourself. Osinachi is hurting and looking for someone to blame. He will come around. But Nnedinma wasn't convinced. She felt the burden of a mother's heartbreak. Her spirit weighed down by her son's absence. Meanwhile, Odinaka tried to maintain the family's tradition of generosity. Despite his ongoing business struggles, he ensured the cows were slaughtered and rice that his brother would have given were distributed. It was not long before the news of Osinachi accusing his mother Nnedinma of witchcraft reached the shocked villagers. Can you believe it? After all the prayers and kindness, Nnedinma is being called a witch. The villagers wondered. Witches don't always look the part. Some said in a conspiratorial tone, maybe she's been hiding her true nature, others thought. These whispers reached Nnedinma's ears. While many still respected her, the doubts sowed by Njideka's actions began to grow roots. Njideka stalked the flames further. It's always the ones you least suspect, she would say to anyone willing to listen. There is more to this than meets the eye. Yet, despite the growing animosity, Onyebuchi and his wife Chinenye stood by Nnedinma. Their unwavering faith became a source of strength. Their nightly prayers, a barrier against the darkness Njideka sought to unleash. Frustrated by Onyebuchi's immunity to her charms, Njideka sought the guidance of a more powerful spiritualist in a neighboring village. The spiritualist, after performing a ritual, told her that Nnedinma's eldest and youngest sons are weakening, but the second son is protected. Njideka asked him to do something about the stubborn boy. The spiritualist advised her to perform a more potent ritual. Njideka was ready to do anything to see Nnedinma's family fail. But as she performed the ritual, behind her hut, her husband Okonkwo overheard her and warned her to leave Nnedinma and her children alone. You are only inviting trouble into our lives, he said. But Njideka, blinded by envy, refused to listen. Odinaka's business continued to struggle. and his financial losses increased. His wife began to question whether they should continue the Christmas tradition of sharing with the village. "Why do we keep giving when we are struggling ourselves?" she asked one evening. Odinaka shook his head. "Because it's who we are. It's what Mama taught us." Meanwhile, Osinachi's bitterness deepened. He had refused to attend his siblings' gatherings and even stopped answering his mother's calls. To him, the dream of Nnedimma chasing his wife was proof enough of her guilt. Onyebuchi, however, thrived. His business expanded and his family remained peaceful. One evening, as he prayed with his wife Chinenye, he felt a strong urge to intercede for his siblings. "God, protect Odinaka and Osinachi. Break the chains of whatever is holding them down," he prayed fervently. The next Christmas, Njideka offered bottles of palm oil to Nnedimma's children as they prepared to leave the village. But Onyebuchi's wife voiced her discomfort concerning Njideka and asked that they don't take the oil with them. They told their mother to throw away the oil after they have gone. Njideka watched from her compound as the cars left. She had planned an accident for them and waited eagerly for news of their misfortune, but none came. Instead, news of her son's arrest, the same hoodlum she had raised, reached her. Her son had been arrested for theft. Then, one evening, Njideka experienced a terrifying vision. In her dream, she saw Nnedimma and Onyebuchi surrounded by a blinding light as they raised their voices in prayer. It was not long, and her schemes stopped working. Weeks passed, and it became clear that the tide was turning. Njideka's jealousy and malice were beginning to backfire. One day, Onyebuchi visited his brother Osinachi, who told him that he and his wife had faced too much since that Christmas. "Osinachi, you're blaming Mama for things she has no control over. You've let bitterness cloud your mind. Let's come together as a family and pray about this," Onyebuchi advised. But Osinachi refused. "You don't see it because you're her favorite. Nothing bad ever happens to you. I will protect my family the best way I know how." Meanwhile, Njideka's life has taken a darker turn as her household chaos intensified. Her sons had been released from police custody, but their behavior worsened. They began fighting with one another, and one of them even threatened to kill Njideka. Her husband Okonkwo finally reached his breaking point. "I warned you, Njideka," he said. "You have brought this upon yourself and this family. Your jealousy has consumed you." Njideka dismissed his concern and warned him not to lecture her. "You never supported me when I wanted the best for our children. Now you sit there, pretending to be the righteous one," she said. Nnedimma's son Odinaka, though still struggling with his business, began to seek solace in prayer. His wife, who had initially been skeptical of their continued generosity, joined him in nightly devotions. Onyebuchi's peaceful life remained a mystery to Njideka, who could not understand why her charms had failed to affect him. One night, Onyebuchi had a vivid dream. In it, he saw Njideka standing in the shadows, holding a basket filled with charms. She was muttering incantations, but a wall of fire surrounded him and his family, preventing her from reaching them. When he woke, he shared the dream with his wife. "I believe someone is trying to harm us, but God is protecting us," he said. "We must continue to pray." Chinenye agreed. "This is why we've been spared. We must pray not just for ourselves, but for our family too." Onyebuchi began interceding for his brothers and parents more fervently. He prayed for reconciliation, healing, and for the truth to come to light. One quiet afternoon, Njideka noticed that no one was in Nnedimma's compound. She went into the compound to bury a charm, but as soon as she tried to do so, Udemba, Nnedimma's husband, came out of the house, shouting and calling for the neighbors' attention. And before harm could be done, the neighbors had gathered. Njideka stood before the people and began to confess. I have wronged you. I was jealous of your children's progress, and I tried to harm them, but I failed. God has fought for you. I did everything, but none of my plots could get to your son Onyebuchi and his wife. I took on your form and attacked your youngest son's wife, killing her unborn child. I am sorry, Nnedimma. Jealousy made me do all this. The villagers who had gathered to witness the scene were stunned. Nnedimma, though shocked, approached Njideka and placed a hand on her shoulder. May God forgive you, she said. The confession marked a turning point for Nnedimma's family. The villagers who had doubted Nnedimma rallied around her, and Njideka was left ostracized and alone to face the consequences of her actions. Her husband Okonkwo told her that she had brought shame to their family, but Njideka tried to defend herself. I was only trying to fight for what was rightfully ours, she said. But her husband Okonkwo told her that she was only trying to destroy someone else's blessings because she could not accept her own failures. Now you must live with the consequences, he assured her. Things fell back to normal, and Nnedimma's sons, who were affected by Njideka's charm, were now free. Peace was restored to the family, with Osinachi now at peace with his mother. The Christmas that followed, the family decided to hold a special Thanksgiving service in their home. During the service, Onyebuchi led his brothers in prayers, asking God to restore all they had lost. Despite Njideka's confession, she could not fully let go of her bitterness. Watching the joy in Nnedimma's compound from a distance, she felt an overwhelming sense of envy. Why should they still prosper while my own children suffer? She muttered to herself. The new year came with a lot of good tidings for Nnedimma's family. Her son Osinachi's wife Ada became pregnant, and Odinaka's business thrived even more than it used to. Njideka's isolation became unbearable. Her children, scattered and uninterested in her plight, refused to help her. Her husband Okonkwo spent most of his time away from home, leaving her to grapple with her mystery. The villagers who had once visited her for gossip now avoided her. They feared that associating with her would bring them shame and earn them excommunication from the community. Njideka's body wasted away from lack of nourishment and care. Villagers passed by her hut, but no one dared to approach. Her reputation as a bitter, conniving woman left her alone in her final days, with only guilt and regret as her companions. Her health deteriorated further. First, her legs grew too weak to carry her. Then her eyesight began to fail. At first, she dismissed the blurriness as a passing affliction, but within weeks, complete darkness enveloped her world. I can't see, she whispered one morning, rubbing her eyes. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of her blindness sank in. Alone in her hut, Njideka's thoughts became a prison. The faces of Nnedimma and her children, the villagers she had manipulated, her husband Okonkwo, and even her own children, whom she had failed to guide, haunted her. She wished she could undo all she had done. One night, Njideka was consumed by both physical and emotional pain. She could barely breathe, her chest rising and falling with great effort. She called for help, but her words were interrupted by violent coughing. She clutched her chest as the pain intensified. By morning, she was gone. Her lifeless body lay in the darkened hut. her face frozen in a mixture of anguish and peace, as though she had finally let go of her burdens in her final moments. When news of her death spread, the villagers were somber but not surprised. Many had anticipated her end, given the way she had been isolated. She brought this upon herself, some people remarked. Nedima and her children, ever gracious, took it upon themselves to arrange a proper burial for Njideka. Despite all that had transpired, they refused to let her pass away in shame. Let this be a lesson to all of us, Udemba, Nedima's husband, said during the burial. Bitterness only destroys the one who harbors it. Let us strive to live in peace, love, and forgiveness. This story teaches us that being jealous of others is bad because it can make us unhappy. Wrongdoing only brings misery, and it is better to choose kindness, contentment, and hard work. Loving and trusting God can protect us from harm and guide us to do what is right. Hello, favorite one. Thanks for listening to my stories. Your support means the world to me, and I couldn't do this without you. Your likes, comments, and shares keep me motivated to create more stories. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss out on any of my new stories. Thanks again, and see you in the next story.